making sure that all of these kids are following the rules. Today, we're going to have our very first book review ever on this channel. Hi guys, Editing AJ here. So I pre-recorded this review a while back, and before I wanted to start with it, I wanted to take a moment to thank everybody who has left a comment and subscribed. I am very thankful that you have taken a liking to the type of content that I made so far, which has not been a lot. I'm trying my hardest to actually post once a week. Currently, I woke up at 6 a.m. to edit this video so that I can post it today for you. But yeah, I am very overjoyed. I actually didn't think that it would get many views, let alone a lot of support from everybody. So I'm very thankful that you're here with me on this journey. I hope you enjoy. The very first video that I've posted has been my booktube newbie tag. I can speak, I promise. Booktube newbie tag. If you have watched that and decided that you want to consume more of my content, welcome. Thank you so much for gracing me with your presence today. And if this is your very, very first video of mine, welcome. We are going to have fun, I think, perhaps. Today, we are going to be reviewing the very first book in the biggest franchise, which is Harry Potter. So grab your favorite drink, settle in your cozy chair, or like whatever you like to sit, or if you're doing your chores, I hope you enjoy this clusterfuck of a review. If you can, I honestly, I hope that you do, because I want to be entertaining, or at least I want to give you something of value, because your time is valuable. It is valuable to me. I plan to review all of the books, like all of the Harry Potter books, like the first 7 ones at least. I don't know about the spin-offs, because I don't know if I will have the energy for that. But yeah, I'm sidetracking again. I'm sorry. Before we start the review, I do have a few disclaimers. Right, so I am aware that J.K. Rowling, I don't know how to say her last name. I'm aware that she has some negative views on the LGBTQIA plus community, emphasis on the T, which I am a part of. But I do not particularly know what she has said, because I do not have social media and I do not follow any authors. I do not follow the news in terms of AuthorTube or what authors do in their free time. So I do not know anything about any of the authors that I will be reviewing. So I don't think you can say that my opinions are biased, or at least affected by authors' behaviors. I know that other YouTubers have made a lot of videos, but I do not tend to consume that kind of content. Third disclaimer is, if you're a big Harry Potter fan and you cannot take criticism because, Harry Potter is everything that you've ever dreamed of. It's the most perfect literature that has ever been created by mankind. Please, you can just skip this video and all subsequent videos related to Harry Potter that I will be making. It's not for you, because I will be shit talking this series. I will be making criticism and I will have harsh opinions about it, and I don't want to hurt your feelings or have any kind of conflict in the comment section. You can just go ahead and dislike the video and leave. It's fine. No hard feelings, okay? I don't feel the need to make a disclaimer for the author, because I'm pretty sure that Joanne has worse things to do with her life and with her time than watch my insignificant video in this corner of the internet or make a comment about it or something. But for future reference, reviews are for readers, and my opinions are not a reflection of anyone's likes or dislikes or their personality or whatever. You can do you. I respect that, and I can dislike what I dislike, and we can still be friends. We can still disagree. We can still have a civil conversation. So let's get on with this review, right? Because I have been fucking babbling about for I don't know how long. I joined a book club back in September on Discord, and they decided to make read all of the Harry Potter books, and I was like, oh yeah, neat idea. I've never really read the books or had any close relationships with the movies because they were not big in my country. I would very much be interested in knowing why this has become a cultural phenomenon, and so yeah, I don't have any form of nostalgia for the series, and I went into it blindly, knowing nothing but, Harry Potter is special boy who lived, when he was supposed to die. And then there is a person who doesn't have a nose. Voldemort. Sorry. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. They just fight back and forth for 7 books, and Harry wins at the end. That's what I know about it. Literally, that's what I know about it. And then there's Dumbledore, who I pretty much have confused for Mithrandir, Gandalf. Oh wow, okay, yeah. I definitely did not forget the name Gandalf. I remember that I thought Dumbledore was just Gandalf. Like it's just the same. It literally just copy pasted. So I'm wondering if they will be similar because I know that Gandalf is a weed head. And reading this book, Dumbledore was quirky, very quirky, just weird. But I wouldn't say weedhead. The Goodreads synopsis of the book goes like this: Harry Potter has never ever heard of Hogwarts when the letters start dropping on the doormat at number 4 Privet Drive. Addressed in green ink on yellowish parchment with a purple seal, they are swiftly confiscated by his grisly aunt and uncle. Then, on Harry's 11th birthday, a great beetle-eyed giant of a man called Rubius Hagrid bursts in with some astonishing news. Harry Potter is a wizard, and he has a place at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. An incredible adventure is about to begin. Right, so as you can see, this is a very cookie cutter adventure kind of template. And I will say that it was relatively easy to breeze through. My partner will beg to differ. She actually hated it. She read it a few years ago and she said that she hated it and she never read the rest of the books because it was too boring. So as for me, I read it twice in the span of 5 days. I do have a full-time job. And then I went through it a third time because I did not organize everything correctly. And so when I was having to write my review, I ended up, going through it a third time. So the book is whimsical. I understand like why it would appeal to kids, and it is quirky here and there. I'm not sure if I read this as an 11-year-old or something, I would not have liked it because I would have had too many questions, and then there would have been too many inconsistencies for me to have enjoyed it. I would have just hyperfixated on all of the things that I actually hyperfixated on as an adult. Except now as an adult, I can sort of control my impulse a little bit and just say, okay, yeah, maybe it will be answered later in another book. But as a kid, I would have just thrown it away and been like, this is too stupid. This is too stupid. I cannot wait. I need answers now. Yeah, so for the very first chapter, we meet, we find out that there's magic. I think we're going through the world with Uncle Vernon, if I recall, and then we find out that magic is real. There are witches and wizards, living in parallel with the normal people, and the book refers to non-magical people as muggles. However, wizards and witches are not very secretive. Not only does Uncle Vernon actually make note of all of the weird things happening around him, but they were so noticeable they got picked by the news. And here's a quote: "On the contrary, his face split into a wide smile, and he said in a squeaky voice that made passers-by stare, 'Don't be sorry, my dear sir, for nothing could upset me today. Rejoice, for you know who has gone at last. Even muggles like yourself should be celebrating this happy, happy day.'" Unquote. So I will be speaking about my beef with the word muggle in this book. But either way, this wasn't an isolated incident, because magic, I feel like, has always been practiced so publicly, especially by Harry Potter, even before he knew that he was magical. Like in chapter 2, where he makes the snake habitat disappear, or like it is mentioned in passing, like weird things happened to him in school. He changed his teachers wig to blue somehow, you know. So I'm assuming that there are hundreds of 11-year-olds who just suddenly, you know, become magical, and then they have weird happenstances to them before they get their letter to Hogwarts. And it kind of doesn't make sense why the magic world would want to be hidden. I know it was mentioned in the book by Hagrid in passing that, you know, it's just because they don't, people are going to want magical solutions to all of their problems, and this is just best for everyone to separate the two. But it felt like a lazy excuse. I felt like the author couldn't think of another reason why, because statistically speaking, a lot of wizards come from non-wizarding families, so that means that the kids parents will know. If they have siblings, then there are more people on it. And in fact, you know, Petunia has told her husband about her sister being magical. He was fully aware. He knew fully about the existence of magic, etc., etc. So wouldn't that mean that there are a lot of people who know already about wizard existing? Why is it secret? And not only that, but there are a lot of species and magical creatures that exist in this world, and even without upscaling this, you know, it's just a logistical nightmare. If we just focus on the UK alone, this is a fucking logistical nightmare that breaks, unfolds upon itself, and the world building just cracks. But I ignored it because I was just like, sure, it's fine. It's a kid's book. This doesn't matter. I was just pretend that, you know, Dumbledore maybe is doing a spell and somehow everything is fine. Like, you know, just making all of the magical creatures undetectable to humans, and Men in Black, white light, make everybody forget everything if they saw anything, right? Sure. I'm just not going to think about it. We move on to chapter 3, right? Harry starts receiving his letters from Hogwarts. So the whole chapter is about him trying to get his hand on like one of these letters, whereas his guardians are trying to stop him from getting them. You know, the letters are magic, and Vernon tries to get them to different places because he doesn't want to admit. I don't understand, to be honest. I don't understand why they don't want him to go. They seem to hate him, seem to not want to spend any money on him. So technically, him going for a whole year would be the best thing to happen to them. But for some reason, they're very aversive to actually let him get his hands on these letters and go. I really don't understand what is their motivation. It is not clear, and they don't really discuss, like the book doesn't discuss it at all. It doesn't even mention it in passing. It's just like they're bad people, so they're just trying to stop him for, I don't know why. I don't know why, you know. But anyway, Uncle Vernon whisks them to a little island described as a large rock way out to sea. Perched on top of the rock was the most miserable little shack you could imagine. And this is where we jump to chapter 4 and meet our friendly giant, half giant I think, Rubius Hagrid, who's the Hogwarts keeper of keys and grounds, right? And he is tasked with delivering the letter to Harry himself because they could not reach him at all. So this is where another problem for me arises. The book makes it very clear in this chapter that students are not meant to use magic outside of the world. Outside of the world. That makes sense. Outside of the school, right? But when Petunia is begrudgingly telling Harry about her sister, you know, and he's finding out about his parents being magic, she says, and I quote, "Knew? Of course we knew. How could you not be my dratted sister, being what she was? Oh, she got a letter just like that, and she disappeared after that? That's cool. And came home every holiday with pockets full of frogspon, turning teacups into rats," unquote. Does this not qualify as use of magic? Or is it like certain spells that you have to do? Who is making sure that all of these kids are following the rules? Or even the adults for that matter? Like, who's making sure that the wizards are not doing magic in public? Why would not an actual wizard make himself very famous by doing magic IRL and making everybody think that it's just a magic trick? I'm just asking. Would that not be a possibility? Hagrid even worried about people, you know, finding out he was using magic and asked Harry, "Hey, you know, I was not really supposed to use magic. Can you just not tell anybody? Can you just don't tell, you know?" And I understand that Hagrid's circumstances are different because he was expelled and it's just like a little nudge. I'm pretty sure that this is like a foreshadowing for later books. It's very clear, right? But is there a thingamabob linked to your wand that would let the authorities know you used magic. And if Harry does not tell on Hagrid in this instance, does that mean Hagrid gets away scot-free? It's just harder for me to comprehend the reasoning behind it all. Can they, like, what are the consequences of using magic outside of school? What constitutes using magic outside of school? Just can they remove one's magic? Can they just make you non-magical as a punishment? Do you go to jail or like community service or something? What are exactly the repercussions of doing magic outside? The book was not really clear. Like it's just like a very clear inconsistency with its own world building. Do not use magic outside. And then we already saw that Harry was using magic outside even without him knowing that he was magic. And Hagrid was using magic outside. So I don't know. And also his mother was using magic during the holidays. So I don't know. It's clear inconsistency right here. Either Joanne forgot that she had written this and then it just slipped by editing and stuff, or it was meant to be like specific. Maybe it's just magic spells that are not you doing your homework, if you can consider, turning rats into teacups homework. But either way, I digress. We move on to chapter 5. Harry and Hagrid, they go to Diagon Alley to get money from the bank and buy supplies. And then we find out that wizards have a bank, just one bank, and it is called Gringotts, which is run by goblins. Now, I'm not sure, right, if this means that there is just one banking company with different like branches around the world. So Gringotts all over the world, and it's all run by goblins, which would have another different meaning, because then the anti-Semitic representation would take an all different meaning with this, or if it's like different like companies around the world, but the UK alone has just Gringotts, right? So I don't know why the author chose goblins specifically, but there are better videos out there who discuss the connotations, like the anti-Semitic connotations in this representation, and I don't have the brain capacity at this point to discuss anything concerning that, because it's a mind fuck. Because like I said, if it's just one bank, right, multiple locations, all of it run by goblins, then you can pretty much go into the Jews control everything narrative. That could be very much implied with that, but I don't want to think about that. Why am I facing an anti-Semitic representations in a children's book? I do not know. Why are these things that are just being... my problem is it's just implied, it's okay. I will move on. I will spare you. You can find someone who made an 8-hour video on this topic alone. I am pretty sure I do not have the brain capacity for it. So Harry and Hagrid, they travel. They're escorted like through Gringotts. Gringotts is running miles and miles underground, which is amazing. And they have this goblin, a Gringotts employee. His name is Griphook, I believe. And they go to Harry's vault, where he finds out, quote, mounds of gold coins, columns of silver, heaps of little bronze nuts. I think I'm reading that correctly. And Harry describes this as a small fortune. And I'm begging him to take a seat, because in what world are mounds of gold a small fortune? Also, this again begs another question. Is there, I'm sorry, bear with me. I told you my brain hyperfixates. Is there an exchange system between the wizarding world money and our world? And by that I mean the muggles world, right? Because I imagine you take weird little coins to be appraised every now and then. At some point you will be questioned by the authorities where you're getting them from. But also we find out in this chapter that there is a Ministry of Magic, which is a governmental body that is tasked with keeping the wizarding world secret. And I'm wondering if there is communication between other parts of the government and the Ministry of Magic. And wouldn't the government be the first to want magical solutions to all of their problems? I mean, just, food for thought. I know this is inconsequential to the story at hand, but it just makes me feel like the world building is getting flimsier by the second. I keep wondering about the logistic of things. And it's never mentioned, like the consequences. Obviously it doesn't matter in this story, but I hope that it is expanded upon in later books, because it is bothering me so much. It is bothering me so much, and I think in a better book it would have been addressed, or at least you would get a nod towards it. But here you're just encouraged to not question it's just like the author is trying to tell you, don't think about it. Like, oh, the wizards want to stay hidden because, oh, they non-wizards would want magical solutions to their problems. It's giving you, it's feeding you what you're supposed to think of it, in a sense, if I don't know if I make sense, but I don't like the excuses the book is giving me, because it feels like the author is trying to escape from the responsibility of explaining the world that she had built, and it's making me angry, and I don't want to be angry because I'm reading to relax. Anyway, they get money from the fucking vault and they do some shopping, and then Harry goes to get his uniform, and we meet an unnamed character, which we later find out is Draco Malfoy. This is where the fucking name Muggles started bugging me so much. You will notice that every time that I've been using the word Muggle so far has been as a referring to the book, like how it was mentioned in the book, and otherwise I would refer to non-magical people as non-magical people, because the word Muggles, quote unquote, has been pretty much used as a slur. Hagrid, especially in this scene, used it. I mean, he's been using it so much so far in the book to insult Harry's uncle and aunt, like the Dursleys. And as a reader, you're supposed to feel like he is vindicated in his anger towards them, because it's just like the most terrible people in the world. But following this interaction with Malfoy, I really didn't see it anymore. Like it wasn't specific to. I mean, it wasn't really. It was clearly meant to be an insult. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So let me quote. Harry says, and he said people from Muggle families shouldn't even be allowed in. Hagrid interrupts him with, and I quote, "You're not from a Muggle family. If he'd known who you were. He's grown up knowing your name if his parents are wizarding folk. He saw him in the leaky cauldron." Hagrid's initial response in this was to distance Harry from the word Muggle. Like, as if it were an insult to inferior beings, All right, I'm trying to not be angry by this, but it actually does infuriate me in a way that I cannot explain. Because even though he does go on to say, and I quote, "Some of the best I ever saw were the only ones of magic in him in a long line of muggles. Look at your mum," unquote. Which, to be honest, to me, as a person who has been in other countries as a foreigner, does come out so xenophobic, because that's the argument that I hear people use for immigrants or for foreigners. Like, oh, I'm not against immigration as long as it's the good ones, And especially the words that followed in that same sentence was, "Look at what she had for a sister." I really don't know how to put this into better words. Okay, editing AJ here. I noticed that I was rambling in the video, and I wanted to kind of provide a consistent thought. So basically, what I have a problem with is the fact that Joanne, through Hagrid, applied the concept of othering. Now, you might be familiar with this and you may not. And if you are not, the concept of othering is where you create this kind of identity, whether it's real or imagined, and you kind of apply it to a group of people through which you create a hierarchy between these group, like a them versus us. And you notice that this is implied in here because it's wizarding folk versus non-wizarding folk. My problem is every time that the book has ever mentioned non-wizarding people, it's always been in negative sense. It's always considered non-wizarding people inferior. Like, even other wizards are using it in an inferior way, and our entire interactions with any non-wizarding person had been in a negative sense. Harry complains even about the person who babysits him, and she's also conceived in a negative light. His teachers in school, the people he goes to school with, like his classmates, etc., etc. So we have not at this book at all met any non-wizarding person who is a good person. And so this reinforces this idea that if you're not a wizard, if you're a wizard and you come from a non-wizarding family, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're not a wizard, you're just bad. So basically, when he goes like, your mom is not from a wizarding family, she's good, and then your aunt is not a wizard, look what, like what she had for her sister, it creates these two identities where wizard, regardless of their origin, good, not wizard, bad, So I don't know if that makes sense. There are layers to this, and I know that the video is going to be long regardless, and I don't want to add more time into it. But that's basically my thought process when it came to this. And I understand completely that what Joanne wanted to say is that there's nothing wrong with being from a Muggle family. But I think the general message should have been that there's nothing wrong with being a Muggle to begin with. But that's not what was communicated. It's just bad because we already have the concept of otherness existing in our world where we apply it to for example, political stances, for example, Democrats versus Republicans versus communists versus, it's always this idea. We apply it in everything. We apply it in religion. It's the concept of Muslims versus Christians versus Jews versus atheists, rich versus poor versus middle class. There's always like this hierarchy, and there's always this us versus them, which kind of creates conflict. And it creates divide, which is great for people who want to control communities and control narratives. But it's bad for us as a society. And this is why I think that it's important like to analyze a text. Even, this is just a children's book. I keep repeating this, but it is important to dissect this and understand the subtext and the context and how that fits into our day-to-day life, how it fits into our communities. Do we also, as people, apply the concept of othering? We cannot just be like, yeah, I want to consume books, just not think about it. I feel that's a very dangerous idea. I think that is very important, regardless of what you're consuming, to think about it in a deeper sense and kind of ask questions, and not only ask questions, but try to find the answers to them. And in this sense, I know I'm speaking very, very fast, but in this sense, I wanted to bring the idea out because it might have been an innocent mistake from the behalf of the author. I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt because I don't really know what her stance is in general, like what a person deserves to have in terms of rights. So I'm not going to be able to judge her as a person. The application of the thought is very lackluster. It's disappointing and disgusting, to be honest, because this could have been something good that would have been an invitation to kind of get kids to understand that there is no difference between me and another person. Like all of those differences are just conceived notions. They're not real. They're just created politically to kind of create a divide between groups of people. I just want to invite you to think about it. Think about the concept of identity, of othering, and how that fits into your community. And after I have finished having my brain fried, I read the rest of the chapter, which wasn't really much. They just got him a wand and then finished their shopping, and then they parted ways. But I was still disappointed by that interaction. And I don't think I will stop being shocked by it every time that I remember how it was said and the context in which it was said. I just wanted to show you that the wordings of things matter. Chapter 6, Harry asks his uncle to give him a ride to the train station, and then his uncle agrees, but only because they have to take Dudley, their son, to get his tail removed. The tail that Hagrid cursed him with has to be surgically removed. So let me repeat that. Back in chapter 3, I think, when we meet Hagrid, there is a scene where Hagrid gave Harry the letter, He gave Dudley a pigtail for no reason at all. Dudley didn't do anything, right? He wasn't making I don't think he was making any snarky remarks or anything. Like Hagrid just wanted to get back at the Dursleys. So he cursed a child, and apparently Hagrid has meant to turn Dudley into a pig, and he made a comment about this literal child saying that he was too much, like a pig already, and so that's why the curse only gave him a tail. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of children, and Dudley is a little shithead, but he is still a child, and I know that as a reader, when you're reading this, you're supposed to be like, haha, he got what he deserved. He's a little shithead. He's mistreating Harry. Yeah, he deserves to have a pigtail, but I don't. I mean, honestly, if Hagrid removed it at least before he left or something, at least it would have been okay. But Dudley has to go to surgery to get this removed, and the fact that all along the book we've been having like these little comments about how overweight Dudley is. I mean, the Dursleys in general, except for Petunia. Hagrid mentions like, oh, he doesn't need more fattening, and then calling him a pig on top of that was just like unwarranted because he's a child. He's Harry's age, I think. Coming from Hagrid, who's half a giant, I think he doesn't fit the societal, what society would consider average body proportions. So I didn't like it. Bad taste in my mouth. We're moving on, We're moving on. Vernon takes Harry to the train station where we finally meet the rest of the Harry Potter cast. That's like Ron and Hermione. Harry meets the Weasleys first because they help him find platform 9 3/4 and then get on it. So this brings me another question. Yay. So let's say you're from a normal family. You're 11. You get this weird letter to Hogwarts, right? Let's suspend our disbelief and say that your parents did not have any follow-up questions. Where is this school? What is this school? How does it work? All right, what do you mean magic? Let's just suspend our disbelief. They have all of those answered. It's fine. They believe it. Is there a guide to show them where to buy supplies from? Is there somehow for them to know where platform 9 3/4 is? Because Harry didn't know, and if not for the Weasleys, he wouldn't have known and he would have missed the train. So, how do all the first year non-magical students, coming from non-magical families, find out where the fucking train station platform is? How do they go to school when they've never been? I'm sorry. I'm asking too many questions. I'm asking too much. I should dial back. I'm not trying. I'm honestly not trying. But my brain is not liking all of these questions. It would have maybe they could have had like someone stand at platform 9 3/4. What the fuck am I saying? My brain is fried, and maybe have some kind of way. Maybe it may be just a sign that only magical. That one wouldn't work either. All I'm saying is, how do all of the students go on from the same platform? Because is it like multiple stations all around the UK? I'm assuming it's the latter. I'm assuming multiple stations all around the UK, and then magical portals them into the same platform, which is the train that goes to Hogwarts. But how everyone knows? The magical family is fine. They're magical. They already know. They've been to the school. Their kids are going to the school. Everybody knows. How do the non-magical ones know? Is there a map that they get with a letter that goes, here's the platform, and they get instructions? Do they get instructions? How did Hermione's parents know where to drop her off? I am beating a dead horse. It's fine. We can move on. Hermione is first, okay. Ron is introduced. They have a little heart-to-heart, and then Hermione is later introduced. Sorry, I keep hitting my fucking microphone because I'm very animated. And then Hermione is introduced when she's trying to help Neville find a pet frog or toad or something. Even from the get-go, Ron just dislikes her for no reason at all. And I know that kids, just general little shit heads, is fine. But I don't understand why Ron complained about Hermione so much, especially when he didn't even know her. And the first thing that we know about her is that she's being helpful towards one of her peers, which is a nice thing. Anyway, after that, Draco shows up with his friends and they try to get Harry to join their gang. But Harry's just like, no, I know what is good for me. They get a little scuffle, nothing really happens, and then they arrive to Hogwarts, and that's where the chapter ends. And then we move on, and I can forget about all of the inconsistencies in the book and move on into chapter 7 to find out more. It's fine. I honestly, I don't think you're meant to be this worked up for a fucking children's book, but I am. I feel like children deserve, but I don't like children, but they deserve better written fiction. And I know that this was huge at the time, but too many inconsistencies, too many things that would have prevented me from enjoying it. Anyway, chapter 7. The main event of this chapter is the sorting ceremony. We do meet, like, in name, just Professor McGonagall, Dumbledore, etc., etc. And basically, we find out that there are 4 houses, you know, the Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, the special, and the racists. I'm sorry, I mean Gryffindor and Slytherin. And then we see a bunch of random characters get sorted. The Sorting Hat has a nice poem. I think that it sings. And then Harry goes into the special house, obviously, with the rest of his friends. And then they sing the most amazing song that I have ever had the pleasure of hearing, or in this case reading about, the Hogwarts school song, which has single-handedly destroyed my faith in humanity. Throughout this book, we've had multiple poems, which is fine. No problem. No complaints. They were nicely written. Nothing too big, you know, nothing too fancy, but they did their purpose. They were nice. But this is the worst one. I will die on this hill saying that this is the worst fucking poem I have ever read. Let me read it for you. If I have to read it, you have to listen to me. Hogwarts, Hogwarts, teach us something, please. Whether we be old and bald, or young with scabby knees, our heads could do with filling with some interesting stuff, for now they're bare and full of air, dead flies and bits of fluff. So teach us things worth knowing, bring back what we forgot, just do your best, we'll do the rest, and learn until our brains all rot. Now, not only do we get blessed by this unparalleled, epically written poetry, the best poem Emily Dickens could never, right? But you get this pleasure, as I did, of knowing that everyone can sing however they want. And I quote, "Everyone pick their favorite tune," said Dumbledore. Don't fucking think about the voice, it's fine. I know that this is meant to be quirky, you know, and fun, because it's, you know, it's a magic school, they do weird things. But why? Why do you hate music so much? Why are you taking a school full of hundreds of children, right? And basically tell them that they can sing however they want. There is no key, no tempo, no rhythm. Everyone is singing whatever fucking melody they want at whatever pace they want. Do you want to know what the fuck is that called? It is not called music. It is called noise. And then Dumbledore is acting as a conductor. And I'm just like, what the fuck are you conducting, sir? Because in this scenario, there is no key. There is no tempo. There is nothing to conduct. I should not be getting this worked up, but I am. Because I wasn't in an orchestra, right? I love music so much, and this is just an offense to human senses. And I'm just reading about it. Now imagine if I had to hear it. If I had to listen, I'm assuming it would sound like the world's worst kids recital in existence, and then time it 1,000,000. Because there is no way this sounds remotely like something you could listen to. I really hated this. I hated the song. I hated the way it was described to be sang. I hated how Dumbledore had the audacity to act as if this brought him to fucking tears. And I quote, music, he said, wiping his eyes. A magic beyond all we do here. That was no music. And I will die gatekeeping music from Dumbledore himself. This is... no. That is not music, kind sir. There are many stupid things in this book so far that I have pointed out, but this is the stupidest one so far to me, and I think the stupidest thing I have read ever. So after they finish this stupid fucking song, they finish, you know, they go to the dorm and go to sleep, and that's the end of the chapter. Then in chapter 8, we get our first glimpse of the classes, right? Everyone is gossiping about Harry because he's a special boy, and we find out about some professors like Flitwick, McGonagall, Quirrell, and Emo Lord, Professor Snape. I didn't have a lot of problems about the other professors, you know, but I had a problem with Professor Snape. Here is the very first interaction between Professor Snape and Harry, and I will be removing some descriptions so as to not end up reading for you like 3 to 4 pages. Quote, "You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making," he began. He spoke in barely more than a whisper, but they caught every word. Like Professor McGonagall, Snape had the gift of keeping a class silent without effort. "As there is little foolish wand waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, ensnaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stop a death if you aren't as big as a bunch of dunderheads that I usually have to teach. More silence followed this little speech. Harry and Ron exchanged looks with raised eyebrows. Hermione Granger was on the edge of her seat and looked desperate to start proving that she wasn't a dunderhead. Potter, said Snape suddenly, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Powdered root of what? To an infusion of what? Harry glanced at Ron, who looked as stumped as he was. Hermione's hand shot into the air. I don't know, sir, said Harry. Snape's lips curled into a sneer. Fame clearly isn't everything. He ignored Hermione's hand. Let's try again. Potter, where would you look if I told you to find me a boudoir? I don't know, sir. Thought you wouldn't open a book before coming, eh, Potter? Snape was still ignoring Hermione's quivering hand. What is the difference, Potter, between Monkshood and Wolfsbane? I don't know, said Harry quietly. I think Hermione does, though. Why don't you try her? That's the first time we see Snape. And I'm just like, mate, you need therapy. Why are you having beef with an 11-year-old student of yours? Just get some therapy. He's being a broody fucking 14-year-old and he's supposed to be in his 30s. This is unhealthy, Snape. I'm sorry. You're supposed to be the edgy shadow edgelord in this, but I'm just saying you're petty. So anyway, they carry on with class. Neville gets injured, which seems to be a theme in the book. You know, he's the comic relief by fucking having bodily harm happening to him every fucking, like, at least once a chapter there's something happening to Neville. He always ends up in the hospital wing. Snape blames Harry for Neville ending up hurt, and he deducts a point from Gryffindor, which, by the way, the pointing system is so arbitrary, it might just as well not exist. Professors are like rewarding and deducting points just randomly. It doesn't matter. After class, Ron and Harry go visit Hagrid, and they find out someone for some reason broke into Gringotts, but then Hagrid refuses to give them any other information, and they go back to the dorm with more questions than answers. And I'm just saying, yeah, me too. I have so many questions, zero answers, and no one is helping. Then we go to chapter 9, right? We get our first instance of evil Malfoy in flying fucking lessons with Madame Hooch. Neville gets hurt, because obviously he does, and then Madame Hooch is escorting him to the infirmary, and she leaves a bunch of 11-year-olds with broomsticks, unattended. I swear if Hogwarts was a real place, the amount of lawsuits they would have them in debt and locked for just like forever, bankrupt. Just they would not be running for a long time. I don't think Hogwarts would have been an ancient school for long. As soon as they step into the 21st century with all of rights and stuff, they will close, because it's a nightmare. Harry and Malfoy get into a scuffle about something Neville owned, and this ended up with Harry taking the broom into the air, and he shows his amazing flying skills because he's a natural, because he's a special boy. Why have your characters work for things when you can just make them good at it from the get-go? Professor McGonagall, who witnessed this, is both like horrified because he could have gotten hurt, and then also impressed because, oh my god, look, he's so good at flying. And then she takes Harry immediately to meet the captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team, which I think his name is Wood, or like at least his last name is Wood. And then another argument with Malfoy happens over dinner, where Draco challenges him to a duel at midnight. Harry and Ron sneak out. Hermione was trying to like stop them, but like she couldn't. And she ends up finding herself locked out of the common room. And as the trio are like going to meet Draco in the room that they're going to deal with, they also find Neville, who also found himself locked out of the common room because he forgot the password or something. The four of them nearly get caught, and they find themselves in the restricted, not the restricted section, in the forbidden corridor or something. Anyway, a place they shouldn't be at, but apparently very easily accessible to students. And they see the three-headed dog, who is Cerberus. And that's it. They sneak back in. They didn't get into trouble. Yay. I don't really care. And then chapter 10, McGonagall ends up buying Harry a broom, which in the beginning of the book, we find out are forbidden for first years to own. But Harry is the special. So obviously, we bend the rules. The rules are just suggestions. It's just fine, friendly suggestions. Rules for everyone else, but friendly suggestions for the special. If the special needs rules bended, we bend rules. It's fine. This is where the world's biggest game is explained to us. It's called Quidditch, and I have to say that's a very stupid game. I'm fine with the number of players, even the balls having different like meanings and like points. Like the pointing system is fine when it comes to like the other balls, but not when it comes to the snitch, right? Because apparently the game does not end until the snitch is caught, and the golden snitch is worth 150 points. So when I say the game does not end until the snitch is caught, I mean under any circumstances. And I'm quoting Wood here. A game of Quidditch only ends when the snitch is caught, so it can go for ages. I think the record is 3 months. They had to keep bringing on substitutes so the players could get some sleep. That is the stupidest thing I have ever read. And I read that they have a school anthem and they can sing however they please, right? So I was ranting to my partner about this because even assuming players do get some sleep and you have like 2 or 3 times the amount of players needed going in rotation, there is still something called athlete's fatigue, even if you sleep. And apparently the game can go on for age. It's not like a game can last an hour or two and then that's it. The suggestion here, or what's being implied, is that the game goes on for hours and then they only stop to go to sleep and then other substitutes come in, you know. And so I'm assuming it's like a full-time job, or even worse, you're just playing for like 16 hours continuously and then you only stop to go to sleep, or like you stop to eat or something, I don't know. And then my partner said maybe they have some magicus healthiest non-tiredest spell. And she said it like this. We were on a call and it just made me laugh because sure, you know what? Just a wizard did it. It's fine. Wood finishes his explanation and then Harry goes to class. Ron calls Hermione a nightmare and she overhears it. She storms out, understandably hurt, and she even skips the next class. And so over dinner, both boys find out that Hermione has actually locked herself in the bathroom and she's been crying and she just wants to be left alone. But again, neither Harry nor Ron think that, oh, maybe we should, apologize or at least talk to her, because they know why she's upset, right? Nobody else knows why she's upset except for her. They literally ignore it and go to dinner to have their dinner without any care. And it wasn't until Professor Quirrell comes in with like, troll in the dungeon, that chaos ensues. Students are instructed by professors to follow the prefects to their dorms, and the professors go to deal with the troll in the dungeon. Harry and Ron want to follow Snape because they see him trying to go to the 3rd floor, but instead they see a troll and then accidentally lock him in the girls' bathroom, only realizing after the fact that Hermione was in that very restroom. So they had no choice but to go and save her. And so when the adults finally finish and show up again, Hermione takes the blame for why they didn't go to the dorm and says that she thought she could take the troll by herself. Now, Hermione never really received any apology from Ron or Harry. In fact, Ron thinks he was the good guy in all of this. And I quote, "Good of her to get us out of trouble like that," Ron admitted. "Mind you, we did save her." To which Harry reminded him, and again I quote, she might not have needed saving if we hadn't locked the thing in with her. And I'm glad we admit it in the book, but then do nothing with it. The book goes on to show them being the best of friends like after this, but honestly, Hermione deserves better. She deserves a group of friends who are not afraid of the word "I'm sorry," and I hate that the author made the only female character that she has who's playing like a main character role bend backwards for the 2 boys that are in the story just to get their acceptance. I hated that. Okay guys, so I've decided to cut this video in half because it's almost 2 hours long. Let me know if you want longer content or if you want me to upload like the entire full version of this, like not a part 1 and a part 2. I will do that later. Don't forget to subscribe. Let me know what you think of this video so far, and don't forget to also like or dislike if you hated my takes on the book. And thank you again for watching.